Great, thank you. Welcome all to the June 27th, 2024 meeting of the Clean Heat Standard Technical Advisory Group. I'm Rick Weston, the chair. We don't go through introductions any longer, except we are going to have one. And I'll start with that, actually, if I may. But before I do that, let me just remind folks of our general housekeeping rules. We ask everyone to stay muted unless speaking. And as a general matter, for public input, we don't use the chat. We share, links if those are necessary. But as a general matter, we don't use the chat for public input. We set aside time for public discussion at various points in the meeting. We ask that the public keep their video off as well, and that the tag members keep your video on. But again, everyone muted unless you are speaking. We use the raise hand function to alert that we want to if anyone wants to speak at appropriate times. We have alternates. We have experts from Efficiency Vermont with us today, I believe. Is that correct, Emily? We're going to have Adam and David, and Hanley's here. I'm assuming Adam and David will show up at appropriate times.
Yep, Adam Sherman will be here for the bioenergy group. Haley Rowe will be here with anything related to pacing. I think Dave will be listening in, and Ben Plotzker is here as well, anything related to Efficiency Vermont TRM work.
Great.
Thanks, Rick.
Any other guests of tag members? Okay.
Matthew Bakerpool is here from the department. We'll be helping out on bioenergy and pacing a little bit.
Great. Okay. Let's start with a review of the agenda. I want to propose one change to it. I just want to reverse two items in it that will actually start with the bioenergy subgroup report and then go to the life cycle accounting methodology. And the reason for this is that Ken has provided us with a set of questions that folks in the bioenergy subgroup have identified for to be answered in some way or another by opinion dynamics in the life cycle accounting methodology. Some of them may have already been answered, but we thought that they would provide a good jumping off point for that discussion. Is that okay with folks? Seeing no opposition, we'll go with that. Okay, and let me introduce Professor Emily Grubert. And Emily, please remind me, forgive me, the T is not silent, is that correct?
Not silent, German, not French.
Okay, thank you. You and I have spoken, and we went through that before, and for some reason I just could not remember. I do apologize for that faux pas. Professor Grubert is from Notre Dame. Her resume, her CV was included in the materials that were sent around today or for this meeting. Emily, is there anything you'd want to say by way of introduction?
I don't think so. It's a pleasure to join. I've been working on decarbonization and heating a lot lately in general. This is a really exciting moment. So really, really pleased to be part of the group. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And we'll do our best to keep it exciting. Okay, then we should review and approve or amend and then approve the minutes of the previous meeting, June 13th. Does anybody have any thoughts about the meetings? If you've reviewed them, any suggested amendments? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye, or in this case, raising your hand.
Aye.
Yep. Okay, good. The minutes are approved. Let's see, Catherine, have I captured everything in that opening section? If I have, then we can go on to updates from the PUC. Deirdre is out this week. I'm sure enjoying a vacation. We have Tom Nauer, Director of Policy from the PUC. Tom, you've got the floor.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's been a little while since I spoke to this group, although I've been attending and following the meetings, so it's good to be here and have a few minutes. Just a brief update from the PUC. As Rick mentioned, we've filled the vacant tag seat with Dr. Grubert. Pleased to have a third Emily on the tag. So welcome from the PUC. Next up, Deirdre and leadership, Rick and Emily Levin, I think, have come up with a proposed agenda for the remainder of TAG's meetings over the course of the summer and fall. So I think, Rick, you're planning to go over that next, and I have nothing really to add there. Opinion Dynamics is expected to provide us with some early win measure characterizations. Schedule is for us to receive that tomorrow. And then we will be providing those to the tag. This includes measure characterizations for a set of well understood measures. The intent is to provide an early look at the format and the backup information and the outputs for what clean heat TRM measure characterizations will look like. Information on carbon reductions, the emissions factors specifically, are placeholder values, and I want to underline that they're placeholder values. So don't get too excited about them just yet. They're included to allow folks to follow through the calculations and see how they work, but they don't yet accurately reflect what the end emission factors will be. These will be provided to the tag for comments, and in particular, Opinion Dynamics will be looking for comments on the overall format and structure to ensure that as they develop future characterizations, they reflect what the tag needs. Opinion Dynamics has offered to come and speak to the tag at a high level on the deliverable, but not looking to get into the weeds on each measure piece by piece. This would be more of an orientation of the deliverable. In terms of comment process, Opinion Dynamics would like comments to go to the PUC rather than directly to Opinion Dynamics. And written comments on the early win deliverable would be due by July 19. So that gives approximately 3 weeks for people to review and develop comments on that. And that gives time for Opinion Dynamics to incorporate feedback into the first full measure characterization deliverable, which is due by the end of August. Opinion Dynamics has said that they're happy to answer clarifying questions as they go forward. And again, they request that comments be limited to things within the scope of the deliverable. They understand that TAG has a lot of interest in a lot of Opinion Dynamics work, but that comments at this time should be limited to what's in the deliverable. What else has... Oh, and one final thing. We received a copy of Ken's memo on bioenergy, and we have provided that to Opinion Dynamics. So they are currently looking at it. And my understanding is they after a quick review, they think some of the questions are answerable sooner and others would need to wait until the full model is run. So that's the update from me. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have questions? Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Just quick clarifier, which is, I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it, which is, are they, Opinion Dynamics, looking at both the current energy being used and the greenhouse gas emissions associated with it, oil, heat, kerosene, propane, and then are they looking at a range of biofuels and how those would reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And has that grown in response to comments that have been received in list of bioenergies?
So Matt, I know that you filed a comment asking about renewable propane, right?
Right.
Is that specifically what you're getting at?
Yes, I am. But
Yeah.
I'm assuming that other people filed similar comments, but I'm not aware.
Well, I off the top of my head, I'm not aware either. We did speak with Opinion Dynamics, I think it was at the beginning of this week, and I made them aware of your comment, and they're reviewing their notes to figure out what's going on with renewable propane. So please be patient, and we'll get back to you on that one. I couldn't say off the top of my head whether this early wind deliverable will be looking at biofuels, or my guess is no. It's more, measures that are currently being implemented through programs in Vermont. These are, think of heat pumps and weatherization, things like that. I don't want to say what's going to be in the early wind deliverable. I haven't looked at that in many months, but it's a small set of things that are well understood. It's not the complete list.
Got it. Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Any other? Yeah, Floyd.
Just to that last point, I just wanted to point out that Clean Fuels Alliance America submitted a comment that noted the exclusion of biodiesel made from waste oils, which is a significant presence in the U.S. That was omitted from the Opinion Dynamics list of measures. So just wanted to make sure that that's on the record. It should be on that list.
Thanks for the reminder, Floyd. We'll pull that up and provide that to Opinion Dynamics.
Great, thank you.
Matt.
I'll be quick, and if this is not the appropriate time, feel free to tell me to stuff it and bring it up later. But the question that I have, that we have Tom and TJ here, is the Opinion Dynamics report combined with a potential study by a different consultant by the department. Are they going to talk to each other before? In other words, eventually they'll have to coalesce, but is there going to be a discussion between now and September between Opinion Dynamics and the department's consultant?
I can tell you that they are in contact with each other on a regular basis.
Okay.
So, where appropriate, they're trying to, have common assumptions and whatnot.
Great. So they're not operating in silos. That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Great.
This is Patrick Wood calling in. I had one other question.
Sure, Patrick. Go ahead.
I'm driving today, so I have to call in. But it was just about Tom's last comment from Opinion Dynamics that some of the bioenergy working groups questions would have to wait until after the modeling, which I just wanted to share that I think the intent of those questions was to try and get an understanding before the modeling, so that after the modeling happens, maybe too late for some things, or maybe more costly to have them redo things if that's in the budget, and all those process details I'm not sure about. So I would just say if they're able to, with their short-term questions they can respond to in the short term, if they're also able to just say their plan in detail for modeling the other things, that would probably be really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, noted, and I will pass along that comment to Zach and team.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. If not, thank you, Tom. Much appreciated. We will move on to the next item in the agenda, which is, I'll make it a brief description of the proposal for the remainder, I say remainder, for the next couple of months of meetings, really next 2 months of meetings for the TAG. Included in your materials is a spreadsheet that Deirdre and the PUC put together, and I really want to thank and thank the PUC for the staff for the work and Deirdre's work, and stress that a great deal of effort, most of the effort here was by the PUC staff, and I'm very grateful for it. This lays out the work that we see, the immediate work for the next 2 months or so for the TAG, and it relates it to, as much as we could, of course, to the tasks that are set out in the statute. And you'll see in the spreadsheet on the second tab, you'll see the statutory tasks that we've been assigned or listed. Of course, you can check the statute directly. So if you go take a look at the spreadsheet, and I encourage you just to take a close look. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time, unless you have questions and want to. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time going through it at this point, but you'll see that what we tried to do is identify the milestones that need to be hit in order to get this work done in the time in a time frame that will make it useful, of course, to the PUC. I mean, this is, of course, what we're all about. So if you take a quick look at it, we've got, and I would just start with our 627 line. It's line 4 of the spreadsheet. If you've got it, if you'd like, we can pull it up on the screen.
You should be seeing it. I am sharing it.
Oh, you are? Okay, good.
Okay.
I've got that window closed. Well, then you can see. We're going to talk today about opinion dynamics, life cycle emissions methodology. We're going to talk, and we hope make a decision on the pacing document. We felt that it made sense to establish another subgroup that could be that will focus on measure characterization and be prepared to respond and dig deep into what we see next from opinion dynamics when it comes in. Tom, I should have asked you this. It's going to come in tomorrow, but you're not going to are you going to send it to us right away?
I can send it to Catherine and you. I don't know how Deirdre usually distributes items to the full group. Okay. She didn't provide that detail, but we can get it to leadership.
If she shares it with us, we can share it with the TAG, but we'll just need you to, I guess it'll be posted also for the public. Yeah.
Right. So when that all happens, we can distribute it and people can roll up their sleeves and dig into it. So we'll have thank you, Tom. So we'll have a conversation today about putting together what I'll call a sort of a quick action ad hoc subgroup on measure characterizations, and that group, and this will come up possibly in the LCA discussion, if there's still outstanding questions about the least cost. I say it again, you can tell I was at the PSB years ago. The life cycle analysis that we want to take up in a subgroup, it may make sense for that also to go into the subgroup I'm alluding to here. Our next meeting on the 11th of July will obviously dig into the work that Opinion Dynamics has provided. And we thought we ought to talk about what a credit looks like. And if there's more to talk about on the least, gosh, I cannot stop myself. The life cycle analysis methodology, we will. At the end of July, on the 25th, we thought we would take up the 9th task, the question of double counting. Brian, I thought maybe you and I should have an offline discussion and just think about how we might want to approach that and the degree to which we do need to approach it. But the double counting of inventory and emissions, or just emissions generally. And we thought that might be associated with establishing a subgroup. Again, these are all questions that the TAG will answer, will decide on, collectively, but this is how we saw the sequence of events. And then on the 26th of July, the draft report of the potential study comes in. So we'll want to obviously begin to take that up at the August 8th meeting and deal with any issues raised about double counting. And then we also want to take up, I guess it's task 6, or I believe, facilitation of the CHS with other energy programs. So you see where we're going with this. I hope this makes some sense. Then at the end of August is the potential study final report and the draft TRM from Opinion Dynamics. And I think that that's really where, well, the end of the summer is there, and we really will have to roll up our sleeves and get to work. So I'll leave it at that. If there are any questions, if you think that we ought to, if there's more thought you want to give to this, please. I see that Ken has his hand up, but you see where this goes, and I encourage you to take a look at it and get a sense of what we think our immediate obligations are. Ken.
Yeah, the one kind of general piece that I'm in my mind looking for is at some point, the PUC has to come up with the rules that it submits to the legislature, and my understanding is that really those need to be accomplished in September, October, and from the proposals that the PUC has floated so far, the issue of ownership, pacing, I don't know if there's another one, but can we get kind of a full list of what if they think of the full rule making document, the pieces, especially those that are going to be relevant for the tag to review the basis for, if we could get those and then think about, okay, how are those topics going to be addressed in the timeline between now and through September? That helps me kind of sort in my head, okay, where this is all going.
Thanks, Ken. I'll take a note of that. Tom is listening. Yeah, we'll come back on that one after talking to the PUC.
Just
Matt.
Can I ask for clarification for the record? Ken, how are the topics in the regulatory docket different from the tasks that do you see as being different from the tasks that the tag is charged with? Is it more extensive?
Well, probably less extensive. I mean, I haven't, I look at the statute regularly, but I don't memorize it. So, but in thinking about what the rule making is going to encompass, I don't know. I don't know what in total what that, I don't think the rule is going to be establishing a credit price, for example. It's going to be establishing the mechanism for establishing credit price through something about the default delivery agent. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm hoping the PUC, they're facing this looming task of providing that, and so maybe they have it broken down into pieces. As I say, we've seen some of the pieces with regards to ownership and pacing, and maybe even with the registration process. But if they have more of those distinct pieces, that it may not line up specifically with statute, or maybe it does, but again, I don't have it in my mind. And to the extent that tag is expected to provide feedback on the basis for some of those rules, that's what.
Okay. Tom raised his hand. Maybe he can respond at least in part.
Yeah, thank you for letting me respond. Ken, I would point you to the April 19 work plan issued by the PUC that provides a fairly comprehensive list and how items would be grouped into deliverables and straw proposals for the public to consider. We've got several irons in the fire, and straw proposals will ideally be issued in the next few weeks. And, frankly, we are full gas for the rest of the summer on getting straw proposals out. And you're right, some of them will be for the tag to consider. Others will be kind of outside the statutory mandate of the tag and more appropriate for the public at large to consider. No specific timeline on when each of those straw proposals will get issued, but I think your general sense of we need to get a comprehensive rule out sometime in the September-ish, early October timeline. That's our goal, so that we can get, have a 30-day comment window before we go into final rulemaking and delivery in January. So that's about it for me.
Thanks, Tom. And thanks, Ken. Matt, and then Brian.
Yeah, just briefly, and I'll talk this more later in the agenda, where we talk about the Equity Advisory Group, which I also serve on, and some of our comments there. But Ken opened the door, so I just wanted to say that I think the Equity Advisory Group might also have suggestions, not on the rule construction, but on statutory changes that would align with the rule, and the Technical Advisory Group might as well. So I think at some point, I think it would benefit the process if those basket of suggestions on statutory changes in order to implement the rule from the EAG, and if they do a merge, and if they do a merge from the tag, at some point we have a discussion for the calendar. That's just my only suggestion. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Matt. Yes, we'll add that to the, into the basket. Thank you. Brian.
Yeah, this isn't nearly as high level as where Matt is, although what he said is really important. I just want to get clarity on exactly what Opinion Dynamics is doing, and in particular that measure characterizations are really determining the emission factors, right?
That's certainly my understanding.
Right. We have a list of clean heat measures in the Act. We have some potential other clean heat measures or variations on them, and Opinion Dynamics has that list, and that might change. The biomass group is working on the emission factors for biomass. So Opinion Dynamics is focusing on determining the, well, I guess it's the credit score based upon the formula in the Act, right? The life cycle emissions of the fuel use that's avoided minus the life cycle emissions of the fuel that's used instead. So that's what they are doing. Is that right?
Well, we don't have Opinion Dynamics here to answer that for you, so that could go into our questions that we are collecting along with the ones that Ken has developed. But if somebody has a definitive answer, certainly willing to have you share it.
Well, that's my understanding.
Okay.
And I would be surprised if it were otherwise, but yes.
But if you need clarification,
well,
if you're
I wouldn't
uncertain.
be surprised at all, Rick, but thank you. Yeah, I think we're just, for the public and even for me, just that we're in a little bit of jargon here in this table. And I think I just want to make crystal clear what it is that OD is doing versus how the work in the biomass group is contributing to that. And, I think what they do tomorrow, what they deliver tomorrow, the early measure characterizations will help, where they say, here are the easy ones, because here's what the credit score is going to be for whatever measures are on that list.
Okay, I got you. Yep, I hear you. That sounds like well, Tom's on the line, so he's hearing it as well. But yes, I got it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, then if not, let's move on to the next item, which is now the bioenergy subgroup report and the questions that we've been talking about. I'll turn it to Ken and Catherine to lead the discussion. And I assume, I'm guessing it'll melt into the LCA discussion, but let's see how that goes. I turn it over to you, Catherine, Ken.
Well, Ken, I think what we're looking for from you is just a sort of putting those questions into context of what you're looking for. I think we've already started to develop some additional questions in the prior discussions. But our intention was to kind of use your questions as a jumping off point for saying, okay, these are some of the questions we already have that would require a deeper dive into what we heard from Opinion Dynamics presentation from the last meeting. And are there others, questions or concerns? I mean, to the extent that you have a specific, these are questions, they're not positions. Take it away and just walk us through what you want us to understand about them. Rick, do you want to say anything else?
No, go ahead, Ken. I was just going to, reiterate that, just what you said. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I want to also make sure that the discussion today is not to resolve the answers to any of these questions, but rather to make sure that this list is clear, comprehensive, so that Opinion Dynamics is aware of the questions that we have. And then over time, and as they said that maybe in the fairly short term, they can provide responses, and that'll be great, because not only are they the responses, but we'll understand how they're translating our questions into what they think they need to tell us. And my guess is there are going to be a couple iterations on that. But so today, my intent is to have us go through this list, and if there can be additional clarity on those points, great. And if we need to add more on this topic, and again, we're the bioenergy, this is largely what this group is focusing on, those elements that are, I'll say, variables in the analysis that Opinion Dynamics is carrying out for its deliverables. So again, that's the intent, not to answer any of these questions. We will probably have opportunities to weigh in and recommend to the PUC if we think as a tag that the answers need to be modified from those that are being applied by the consultants, but not today.
And Ken,
so I could go through the 8 of them, or we could just open it up at this point. I don't know.
Well, they were shared in advance. I'm not sure if we need to go through all the questions as much as just see if anybody, what we were going to do next is see if anybody had any additional questions they wanted to add to this list.
I see Patrick.
Patrick Wood, could I just give sort of an overarching comment about the purpose of all the questions? Was primarily that over the past several months, we've had a lot of conversations about how the measure characterizations and carbon intensity modeling is being done. We've gotten at different times different parts of answers, and as a bioenergy group, felt that we didn't have it all clear as to how they're going to go about doing these things. So looking for a summary to say, this is the plan, this is how we are going to model A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so that we have an update and an overall summary of their plan that then we can evaluate and comment on. Thanks.
Thanks, Patrick. Can I start with a question? Are there any questions that have been answered that we feel that we understand what OD is doing and either we have no problem with or we still have problems with? Let me start there. Would that be helpful for the conversation?
I'm assuming, Ken, you asked them because you don't feel that they have been answered. Is that right? There was, when they gave their presentation last week, one of the things that OD caveated was that this was a high-level presentation, that there were a lot of assumptions built into the resources that they were relying on. I don't know if you've had a chance to go that deeply to see if some of these were answered in those resources and the assumptions behind them.
And again, my review of the list of 8 right now, I do not know the answers. Have I looked at all of their background resources to see if those answers are there? No. But and again, this is also a reflection of the full bioenergy group. So I think if I were ever to develop a specific answer, that's not good enough. It needs to be something that's well understood by all of us. So that's why I think we're throwing it back at the consultant, saying, please answer please answer these, and don't send us seeking how you answered them.
Got it. So I guess, Rick, I'm not sure we have any answers or can reach a place where we would be able to take a position on any of these at this point. I thought that one of the values of Ken's questions was to just get us, again, thinking about what remained questions after we had the opinion dynamics presentation last time, because we really didn't have time to let people process that and let people, dig in more deeply. So one of the things we wanted to take up was in the life cycle analysis methodology session that we're now bleeding into is, what additional questions do others have? These are from the bioenergy group. They've done a lot of thinking about it and wanted to make sure that we're collecting all the questions from everybody that we can pass along at this stage, or any flags, red flags you have that you want opinion dynamics to address. So is it okay, Rick, if we just kind of go ahead and transition to that session on for the next conversation?
I think so. I would just as a segue to it, I'm assuming that the PUC, Tom, you have already, or you will forward these questions to Opinion Dynamics. I mean, this sort of has the feel, the sense of discovery, and I hope that that's the case. I hope you are, of course, forwarding them too. And as we develop additional questions today, we can commit them to paper and send them on as well.
Yes, they have received what you have in the packet today, and if it's refined or updated, we'll send that update.
Great.
So let's go ahead and open it up for others who I hope you've had a chance to go back and review the opinion dynamics if you did have questions and saw on the agenda that this was the topic to raise additional questions. Rick.
And if I may, I'll start with the question that I have, and I need to do some writing on it. I want to more fully understand what Opinion Dynamics told us about how it is modeling electricity, the emissions from the electricity grid. We've talked about this before. I want to take some time, as I say, to commit this to paper. But I was happy to see that they will be treating the electricity emissions as essentially 100% non-carbon. In other words, no carbon emissions by 2035. If I understood this correctly, but I'm not sure that what they're doing, how they're treating the emissions in the interim, is appropriate. It may be rough justice, and I need to understand that. But I feel pretty strongly about this question and about how the proper approaches for determining what in fact are the emissions of the Vermont portfolio of electric generating resources that should be recognized for the purposes of determining, again, these net emissions impacts of CHS measures, in particular, of course, measures that have to do with electrification of heating and water heating. So I've spoken on this earlier. I'd like to put something on paper. I can't do that until next week, but I will do that and share it with the group, so you know where I think we should be, and where I think we are. And generally the state's approach to this, but I want to make sure that I'd like to make sure that opinion dynamics is not well, is fairly recognizing what the changes in our portfolio are going to look like and how they affect our emissions. So that I'll commit to putting something on paper for everyone to take a look at.
Brian.
Oh, I saw TJ put his hand up right after me. Now I want him to go first.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, TJ, then.
I just wanted to clarify that I think upstream emissions from the electric sector never actually get to zero. It incorporates 100% renewable portfolio as it, required by the renewable energy standard, but there are still upstream emissions from some of the sources. So, but
yes, no, thank you. No, of course, that's fair.
That's it. Thanks, Brian.
Well, that's why I wanted you to go first, because that's what I was going to say. There's in the inventory, post 2035, emissions going to be zero from electricity sector, but in the clean heat standard world, there won't be.
That's correct. I forgive me for being passing that over. Yeah.
All right. Other questions that we would have for Opinion Dynamics on their methodology? Lloyd.
Yeah, I going back to a point Patrick made earlier. I think it was Patrick. I think it's critical that questions like the ones that the bioenergy group put forth are answered before the modeling is done. Having worked in government myself for 32 years, I know that particularly modeling projects that are under budget, once you go down a particular path, it's very difficult to make significant changes to that. So I think it's critical, particularly with some of these sectors that are very key to the policy, that we get a much better understanding of how opinion dynamics is going through this, rather than beyond just kind of high level summaries. I think the devil's in the details, and we need to understand what those details are. And part of that is going through this list of questions. The other thing I would note is I don't think the questions that were listed in the bioenergy document is intended necessarily to suggest any particular thing. So I was looking at 2A and 2B talking about carbon intensity values for Vermont located combustion emissions for crop-based versus waste oil. I don't think we're suggesting that there's a difference in combustion emissions between the two. As far as I know, if a furnace or a boiler doesn't really care where a fuel comes from, it's going to combust that in a particular way, and you're going to get a particular emission factor, regardless of where that fuel came from. So we're not suggesting there's a difference there. We're suggesting, I think we're looking for a bit more formality and structure and transparency in the modeling approach that Opinion Dynamics is going to employ.
Thanks. Helpful clarification. Well, if there are no other questions, I guess I want to leave the door open to folks still, being able to submit those. Rick, why don't you say more at this point about this subgroup? It seems like this would be the appropriate time to at least ask for volunteers who might be interested in being part of that subgroup and talk about the timing of when you might need to meet.
Sure. Well, I think that if we create a subgroup, and I think we should probably, to take a first look at what Opinion Dynamics sends the PUC tomorrow, then that group would need to meet. I would think would want to meet as soon as possible, and would be able, therefore, to come back to us at our next meeting to give us a sense of what they think we've gotten. So it's short term. This is short term and immediate, and I would certainly ask for volunteers, and I will volunteer myself as well.
Okay, we got one. If others are interested in being in this group, I can imagine we could set this up for next week for a couple of hours, but that would give you a little bit of time to review it in advance, so probably later in the week. It may be you decide you need another additional. So the hands are going up. I don't know if these are questions or volunteers. Let me ask. Ken, are you volunteering, I'm assuming?
I am volunteering, but also next week's a little challenging for scheduling.
For everybody?
4th of July is
Oh,
Thursday,
right.
which erases,
Yeah.
really erases the 5th. And for me, you know, I can't do anything on the Wednesday. And just so you folks know, I have COVID right now, so I'm not firing on all cylinders. I don't know when I'm going to be back to full steam. Anyway, so next week's going to be hard.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. I mean, it could also be the very beginning of the following week. Is that looking better? After the 4th of July? Say Monday or
Patrick Wood. I'd like to volunteer, and yes, the week of the 8th would be much better for me.
Okay. Other volunteers, I see Brian, your hand is up. Michelle, your hand is up.
Well, I had a question. I wasn't going to volunteer right away.
All right, Brian. Go ahead with your question.
Maybe this gets answered when we see what we get from OD tomorrow, but the way I understand it right now is that measure characterizations for everything besides the biofuels is actually going to be pretty straightforward. So I want to understand like what would be the, you know, what is going to be the actual task of this new group, and then how is it going to interface with the existing biomass energy group, where I think the toughest questions about measure characterization and credit score is really going to be happening.
Well, I'll take a quick start at that, Brian. That thought had occurred to me as well. I'm wondering if if you're right, and we see tomorrow measure characterizations that are, as they say, early win and are straightforward along the ways in the way that we might expect, well, then the work of the subgroup will be to I mean, one could imagine it will get together, we take a look at it, and you get a general thumbs up on most, if not all, of the measures that have been so far proposed. It seems to me that when we start getting at the renewable fuels and others, that maybe the bioenergy subgroup, in fact, morphs into this group, and the work becomes the same. We'll see. Does that make sense?
I mean, I think that's kind of a paraphrase of what I said, but I still want. I mean, if people want to volunteer to be on another group, that's up to them. I'm going to look at them anyway. To me, like the example that comes to mind of an early win is weatherization, right? It's like we're not scoring the embodied energy in the weatherization, so it's just avoided fuel, avoided fossil fuel, and I don't think we're having much of a debate about what the life cycle emission factors are for the fossil-based fuels. So I expect that's going to be on the list, and I don't expect that we're going to have a lot of conversation about that emission factor.
Fair enough. I guess my feeling about this is it still is worthwhile for us to take a formal look at it and at what we get and say whether we think they got it right.
No, I have no objection to that, and if people want to sign up to do that, that's fine with me. My second question still stands, is like, how does this interface with, or is the biomass, is there's going to be everything but biomass energy that's still going to be the purview of the other group, or should we all work together?
Well, Ken, you have your hand up. I'm just curious if you want to be responsive.
Thanks, because I want to perhaps offer a little bit different perspective. I think weatherization actually is going to have a huge number of elements that are different. There is no such thing as a weatherization project. Weatherization, there can be a $50,000 weatherization project that may reduce the fossil fuel use by a very, very large amount. And there can be putting in weather stripping, which may reduce it by 1%. And so how they characterize a weather is, by hoping that they don't characterize a weatherization project, but rather they identify the variables that will lead to the appropriate amount of fuel use reduction. So that's you're right, weatherization is a big one, and the other one's heat pumps. And there are a large number of variables with regards to heat pumps that I'm really looking forward to hearing of how they deal with it. As you know, there's certainly whole home systems, there's mini splits, there's systems that are fairly small. And are they going to, what proportion of the heating capacity is the heat pump supposed to displace in a particular installation? So again, how they differentiate a heat pump installation to identify what I hope is a different number of credits depending upon how those variables are identified within the credit application, that I think is going to be hugely important. And I would not speculate today about what they are going to propose. That's why I'm really, really looking forward to the product. And in terms of the bioenergy stuff, you're right, that's different, but I don't think they're going to be spending a lot of time on the bioenergy stuff. That replacement, this is the difference between the installed measures and the delivered fuel measures. I think the delivered fuel measure is right, is just about carbon intensity. And I'm not imagining this characterization work group is going to spend much time on that at all. We're going to be looking at the installed measures, and there is a huge range on many of the topics that I'm interested in how Opinion Dynamics frames them initially.
I'm also hoping that the questions that have been posed will be getting some answers to those in parallel to these measured characteristics, maybe not by tomorrow by any means, but certainly in the next week or so. So I would assume that would also go back to the bioenergy group for them to take a look at those answers and have some either additional follow-up questions or maybe some concerns if they have them. So in terms of that overlay. Okay, Floyd and TJ, why don't you go next and then Floyd?
Sorry, I was just going to volunteer the department in the form of Matthew to join the committee. He's closest to the NV5 study, so I think that makes sense for him to be on the group.
Great, thank you. And Floyd?
Yeah, not a question. I was simply volunteering for the this new activity. Probably no surprise to anyone.
Very good. Okay, so we've got Rick, Ken, Patrick, Matthew, Baker Poole, and Floyd. Michelle, you had your hand up earlier and took it down. I'm assuming you're not volunteering for this, but did you have a follow-up question? All right. Well, then that seems like, yeah, Emily? Roscoe,
Thanks.
sorry.
I was just going to ask if I could participate as well.
Yep, you're on the list now.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm going to put Casey on the spot. Casey, you had your hand up at one point. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we're volunteering. Just trying to do it at least. Yes.
Volunteer. So you're volunteering. Great. Okay, our group is getting big. All right, I will work with you to look at your schedules together and see if we can find a good time the week of July 8th, very early in that week, obviously, because our meeting is going to be that Thursday. And assume that, is there anybody that just wants to raise their hand and take a leadership role for that group? Rick, since you proposed the group, do you want to do that? put you on the spot?
Heaven forfend. Yes, I suppose so.
So to the extent that you want any preparatory work done leading up to that meeting, I'll put that one on you.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Thanks, Catherine. I really appreciate that.
All right.
Well, this will force me to give some thought to what Brian has said about what the purpose of the group really is. So thank you.
It's a far, far greater thing than you have ever done.
Oh, geez.
Well, surprise, surprise, we are running ahead of schedule. So I'm going to propose that we go ahead and take our break now and come back and give you a whole 10 minutes and come back at, I'm in Mountain Time, so what, 10:37, thereabouts, and then we'll move to Michelle's pacing subgroup recommendations, and have plenty of time to move through those. Her memo, again, if you haven't read it, please take a good look at it during the break and be ready with your questions, and we'll start with that right off. Sound good?
One thing, Emily, Professor Grubert has also volunteered. She's unfortunately not able to get on.
Oh, she can't get on the Zoom?
Well, no, she was, but she got in a truck, I think, or was driving somewhere.
Okay. All right. I'll put her on the list as well. Thank you. All right, all. 10 minutes. See you in 10 minutes.